Hi, we continue our video on how you can import drawing from AutoCAD DXF into the software. Okay, in the first part of this video, can go back and look at it. We talked about how you can start it very simple and import into the rectangles in and then add them as a floor. Okay, and we also talked about the fact that once you bring in the DSF, the rectangles as DSF into the software, okay, then it becomes more like modeling with shapes, which we have we have gone into a great depth in explaining in the previous videos. Okay, it will be worth going back to look at that. But in the first video of this part one of these importing DSF and AutoCAD DSF to the software, I've already shown you how you can do that. The next part of the video, I also want to show how you can add, as you can see, we have a button, add new floor from AutoCAD DSF. Okay, now we prefer you use the first method. It's much more that we have discussed in part one of this video. It's much more simpler, straightforward, and easy. Okay. To use this, you have to make sure that you have everything sorted out very well. Okay. The first thing is this: for each of the floor, you have to save the DSF for each of the floor. Okay, it's extremely very important. Okay, so it's very important that you save one floor to one file before you can add it direct. Okay, so what we do now, I will save. Let's assume that this is our ground floor or our first floor, whichever one it is. But let's assume that this is the ground floor. I just want to save them floor by floor so that it will be easier by the time we start adding them. So what I mean by that is that in DSF, first of all, of course, you bring out the panels or the rectangles. Okay, you bring the rectangle object, bring them all out in DSF very well. Make sure you have checked everything and all is fine. And as I've said before, the previous video, also avoid a lot of lines. Just the rectangles. That's all you need. Okay. So once you have done that, the next is to save them floor by floor. So I'm just assuming that this is my ground floor. I'll click on file and then click on save as. Yeah. And then I can just save it. I will just call this model 6. Design model 6. I'll call it ground floor. Okay. This is ground floor. Okay. So you save. Then let's also assume, to make it easier, that this is also my first floor. The thing is that one floor to one file, and you cannot save two floors in one file. It has to be one after another. So I will save this. Sometimes you might have to select, depends, and then you click save and all the rest. So, but the whole idea is that I will save this now. This is the next one. Also, I will save this. I'll save it as again. So just go back. So this will be my first floor. So this is my first floor. Okay. Then let's assume that also this is my second floor. Now I'm just simplifying things. I don't have time to go into some level of complexities. Yeah, but again, the method is the same. Each floor to one file, extremely very important. Okay, so let's call this my second floor. Okay, so this is second floor, and then finally, I will also save as so this now will be my roof level. Okay, so this is roof level. So that's it. So I have all the floors I need. As I said at the beginning, you have to separate the floors. Make sure you have one floor in one file. Make sure you don't have any other thing within. I mean, even if you have to select copy it out to a different, open a new, file and then paste it in there, just to make sure that you are working only with what you need for that particular floor. Because if you have something else lying around somewhere, in the outer space somewhere here, it will still organize it as if, assume if you have a rectangle here, it will still see as a rectangle. So that means your model might be wrong if you carry on doing that. That's why you have to make sure it's only the floor that you are saving. Okay. Again, as I said before, I don't recommend this method, but if you have to use it, now this is how you do it. In the sense that you have to save one floor to one file. And you'll see the reason why we have to do it that very soon. So once you have finished saving the floors, and the next you go to the software. Now I'll open a new project, and then you can now add it. So I will go to, in this case, I will just go direct. So I will go to modeling with shapes, then I will click add floor from AutoCAD DXF. So in this case, I want to add my ground floor. And then I will go to the ground floor that I saved, which is you can now see why we saved them one by one. Then I'll click open. So that's it. You can see the software have added. You can see this is the ground floor. It's added direct, without any, we don't need to bring it in as a rectangle first. So it kind of like added it direct. Okay. So the next I will add my upper floor. Okay. So I'll add the first floor. So this is my first floor that I saved. Then you add. Again, if you have some other things at the background, once you bring it in, it will show, it will just show. So now this is my first floor. Okay. And then the next, again, I will bring in the second floor. So of course you use upper floor to add the second floor also. So I will go down, and this is my second floor, then bring it in. So this is the second floor. You can see it's all flowing very well. The next, I will now import the roof level. Just get the rectangle that forms the roof, which we have already saved. And you can see the reason why we saved them floor by floor. So by the time I import, it's only that whatever that is within that floor that's being imported. You can see. So we have done the same thing. We have all the arrangement. We have all the floors, the ground floor, first floor, second floor, and the roof. And the software behave as expected. Okay. Now, the thing is, the only problem with this method is the fact that if, for instance, that you have something, as I said before, lying somewhere here and you didn't know, and you save the file, then when you are adding, automatically that will be added. That means you now have to start, going to delete that, which is very, very complicated. I always advise get the model right. It's very important. Once you have the modeling right, once you have done it properly, you save yourself a whole lot of trouble. We don't have so many errors to checkmate and all the rest. So once you do a proper modeling, and everything is fine. Another good way to know when your model is kind of like going off is by the time if you start seeing double grid. Let's say you have a grid, and the grid, let's say this distance is here, this is 5,000. Assuming if you have a distance like, as I've said before, 5 millimeter, and then you're having a double grid, then you know that something is not quite right with your model. In fact, most often people encounter that, not very often, but sometimes people encounter that when they model from AutoCAD. I will tell you the reason why that could happen later as we go on. But if you start having double grids, please, it's always important. If you're importing from AutoCAD, this problem usually affects when people import from AutoCAD. When you model direct with the software, it's quite very simple, and because we're using reference by panel, or we are referring a very good example. Like if I add, if you add a rectangle, and then we have done this, you can use quick copies like reference. When you reference, you can copy to the left or right, so it's the software map out the next coordinate, in relation to what's existing. So the chances for error is reduced almost 100%. But when you import from AutoCAD, sometimes because of the way some people model in AutoCAD, there might be a tiny little gap which they didn't even see. But a very good clue to know that things is not quite right is if you start having double grid here. If you start having double grid, then you know that you have to watch it. Okay. Yeah, so that is the second method of importing from AutoCAD. And I think probably so you only do these basic two methods is what we actually have on how you can import from AutoCAD, as I have done in the previous video. The first one, of course, is in part 1, where you bring it in as shape. And once it is in as a shape, then you more or less modeling with shape, and everything flows from there. And then the second method, what we have just done, where you add the file, that you import it file by file, direct into the software. And in that one, you have to be very, very careful. Just make sure that you save one file at a time, and once you do that, one floor one floor to one file. And when you do that, everything will turn out fine. But my own opinion, I will still prefer you use the method we use in part 1, because in that method, first and foremost, you bring in the DXF. A very good example, like what we just done. I can still do that. I can use insert, and then I can bring it into the software first. So for instance, this is the ground floor. I can bring it in first, and then can bring them in, and then you add it. The reason why you bring them in first, at least you can see what you want to add to the floor. And the reason why sometimes we try to kind of tell people to be very careful when you are creating floor arrangement is that, again, this is a structural forms. Even though they are graphics, but still, once you add them as a floor, now a whole lot of other things are there. At this level, it's just a plain rectangle, very easy to deal with. But once you add it as a floor, you can see the software generates a whole lot of other things. So before you go ahead to generate a whole lot of other things, it's kind of like a good practice to at least know what you are trying to add. That is why I said I would prefer you bring it in as a shape first, and then you now add it later. Except if you are quite very good with model, some people are very good with model. You get to a point that you are extremely very good. But again, we have also seen people that are also very good make mistake in AutoCAD, and by the time they import it into the software, it becomes a problem. A lot of probably double grid and all the rest. I will show you examples of that. That's why to make it easier, if you must use AutoCAD DXF, then I will advise bring it in first as a plain shape, and then you can add it as we did in part 1 of this video. You can add it as floor later. Okay. Yeah, that's the second way. In this particular video, I've shown you how you can kind of like add new floor from AutoCAD DXF. By doing that, you can add the floor direct from DXF into the software, and it will just work with it. Okay. Next, I will want us to look at some other things that could happen, kind of things that you have to watch out for when you are using importing from DXF, so that by the time you import, everything will be fine. Yeah, that is the thing I will do in the next video, so that you can kind of like watch. Of course, to finish up this, of course, you just click on File, and then again, automatic design settings, and then click automatic design, and just wait, and the software does the design, and you can see everything worked as expected. Okay, yeah, so that is importing from AutoCAD DXF, and in this case we did it direct. Okay, see you in the next video. Thank you.